I never expected my life to feel this fragile. Not after everything I'd built. My company worth over $100 million. My sleek BMW waiting outside. My apartment that felt like my sanctuary. But that night, as I sat on the couch finishing a late email, I realized something terrifying. Someone was in my home. At first, I thought it was a break-in, a random thief. But the air felt wrong, heavy, personal. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. One message. You shouldn't have left me. My hands went cold. The text wasn't vague. It wasn't a mistake. I knew that handwriting, not on paper. The words carried a tone I would recognize anywhere. I ran to the door, locked, from the inside. I never lock it when I'm home alone. Panic rose like acid in my stomach. A shadow moved across the kitchen, not fully visible, just enough for me to see a familiar shape, tall and menacing. My breath caught. My mind raced. Could it be him? The man I had once trusted with my heart. My marriage. The man I had left when I discovered his betrayal. My ex-husband, why are you here? I whispered, voice shaking. No answer. Just silence. Then a slow, deliberate step. The shadow stepped into the light. A face I thought I'd forgotten, twisted with anger I never imagined. His eyes were cold, hard, like he was holding a storm inside. You left me. You took everything from me, he said quietly. Each word sharp, deliberate. Now, it's my turn. My chest tightened. Fear and disbelief collided. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to destroy me. My heart raced as I realized the truth. This wasn't random. He had been planning this, watching me, waiting for the perfect moment. My life, my freedom, my success, all the things that proved I had moved on, were now targets. And as he stepped closer, I knew one thing. Tonight, I might not survive. I had survived his betrayal before, but surviving him now, that was another story. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My body felt frozen, my mind trapped between disbelief and terror. He was here, in my home. The man I had once trusted more than anyone, now standing like a predator in the place I had always thought was safe. You think you can just leave me and build your perfect little life? He said, circling me slowly. Your car, your company, your apartment, all of it. I've watched it all. The words hit me harder than any slap ever could. He had been following me, watching me. Every success I'd fought for, every moment I'd cherished, all of it twisted into some kind of revenge fantasy in his mind. I backed toward the couch, heart hammering. You're sick, I managed to whisper. I'm done pretending, he said. Tonight you're going to remember why you should have stayed. Tonight, you pay. My fingers shook as I fumbled for my phone, but it wasn't there. My bag, my laptop, all my lifelines, gone. Panic clawed at me. I realized he had been meticulous. He knew my habits. He had planned this. A sound from the balcony made me flinch. My mind screamed for escape, but the doors were all locked. I was trapped, and then I remembered something crucial. The security cameras. My company had invested in them for the apartment, but if he had been watching, he knew how to disable them. I had one option, one chance to survive. I had to stay calm. You're not going to get away with this, I said, forcing myself to sound braver than I felt. He laughed, low, cold, dangerous. I already have. You just don't know it yet. Then he stepped closer, and I saw it. A small, folded envelope in his hand. He tossed it on the table near me. My curiosity overpowered my fear. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, photos. Me alone in my office. Me leaving my apartment. Me entering my car. Each image had been captured recently. He had been inside my life, tracking me, plotting every move. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting. This wasn't just revenge. This was personal. And now, it was coming for me. And before I could react, he leaned in close, voice a whisper that sliced through the room. Smile, darling. You're about to learn what it really feels like to lose everything. I had faced heartbreak before, but facing him now was nothing like heartbreak. This was survival. I backed away from the table, my fingers still trembling as I held the envelope. Each photo felt like a punch to the chest. He wasn't just here to scare me. He knew everything. My routines, my habits, my life. My heart raced. How long had he been planning this? How much of my life was already tainted by his obsession? I should have expected this, I whispered to myself, trying to steady my shaking hands. I left him, I moved on. I'm strong. I can get through this. But strength felt useless when the man who had once held my heart now held my fear. He smiled, a slow, cruel curl of his lips. Strong? You've built this empire thinking you're untouchable. But tonight I'm going to prove how fragile it really is. Before I could react, my phone buzzed again, a message from another unknown number. I hesitated, then looked down. It was a video. My own car, parked outside my office. Someone had broken the window. My BMW. My pride, my independence, smashed. I felt a cold rage rise, but also a sinking terror. He was escalating. He wasn't playing games anymore. He was striking at the things that defined me. I told you you can't run from me, he said, stepping closer. Everything you've built, everything you've earned, it's mine to ruin, and I will. I realized then the apartment, my car, my office, and nothing was safe, and I was completely unprepared for what came next. He moved suddenly, fast, forcing me toward the couch. My mind screamed, but my body reacted on instinct. I ducked, narrowly avoiding a shove. He stumbled slightly, and for a moment I thought I might have a chance. I grabbed the envelope, scanning the photos again, and then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. One picture of my office, but in it, a shadow of him, barely visible, taken just hours ago. He had been inside my company too. My blood ran cold. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted to destroy every part of my life. And just as I backed into the corner, I heard him whisper, "You thought leaving me was freedom. You were wrong. Tonight, you learn fear." I realized the terrifying truth. I wasn't just fighting him anymore. I was fighting everything he had planned. And I had no idea where it would end. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to run, hide, fight, anything. But the apartment felt smaller with him in it, and every door and window mocked me with its locked helplessness. He didn't say anything at first, just watched me, that cold, calculating gaze that once made me feel loved and safe, now twisted into menace. I realized something terrifying. He knew me better than anyone else in the world. He knew how I'd react, where I'd go, what I'd do. Then he moved, fast. And I realized this wasn't about a warning anymore. He wanted to hurt me, to terrorize me, and he had the tools to do it. "Sit down," he ordered. His voice had an edge I had never heard before, like steel wrapped around poison. "Calm down, and maybe this will be easier for both of us." I didn't move. I didn't sit, and that's when he smirked, cruel and deliberate, and pointed toward my balcony. My eyes followed, and I saw my BMW, gone, vanished. My mind screamed. He had someone moving it, outside, taking pieces of my life one by one. "You've always been so independent," he said softly, almost tenderly. "But it was all fake. Look at you now, strong, successful, and completely alone." I clenched my fist. "You won't win," I whispered. "I'm not the same person I was when you hurt me." He laughed, a low, dangerous sound that made my blood run cold. "That's what makes this fun. I want to see you fight. I want to see how far you'll go before you break." Then he pulled something out. A small device, blinking red, like a remote. My stomach twisted. I recognized it immediately, the panic button I kept in my office for emergencies. He had stolen it, and now he was using it against me. "You see," he said, stepping closer. "This isn't just about you tonight. It's about everything you've built. Your life, your company, your freedom. I'm taking it all. And you're just going to watch." I realized I had no more time. He was serious. This was a game he intended to finish. And I might not survive the first round. And just as I lunged to grab him, he pressed the device. My apartment lights went out, plunging me into darkness. In the pitch black, I heard a faint click, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was just the beginning. The apartment was pitch black. My heart pounded like it wanted to escape my chest. Every sound, the hum of the city outside, the creak of the floorboards, felt amplified, threatening. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him, cold, calculating, waiting for me to make a mistake. I crouched near the couch, trying to steady my breathing. My mind raced. He had taken my car, sabotaged my office, and now he had full control over my apartment. Every light, every device, all of it in his hands. I felt trapped, suffocated. Then I heard it, a faint shuffle near the balcony. My pulse spiked. He was moving silently, circling me like a predator. My instincts screamed at me to run, but with the lights out, I didn't know where to go. I remembered the emergency exit plan I had drilled in my head years ago. One window, a small balcony, then down the fire escape. But if he had disabled my security system and taken my car, could I trust that route? I had to try. I slowly inched toward the sliding door, counting each step in my head. My palms were slick with sweat, my body trembling. Just as I reached for the handle, a sharp sound, like metal clicking, froze me. He had anticipated this move. Thought you could escape? His voice came from right behind me. Calm, threatening, personal. I spun around, lamp in hand, and he stepped into the faint glow from the city outside. There he was, the man I once loved, the man I had left to protect myself from betrayal, now a shadow of rage and obsession. "I'm not afraid of you," I said, though my voice wavered. He smiled, the kind of smile that used to charm me, now twisted with malice. "You should be, because this is just the beginning. One wrong move, and everything you've built, gone, all of it, and you will wish you never left me." I clenched my fists, rage mixing with fear. I refused to be a victim. I realized then I didn't have to see him to fight back. I had to stay calm, think fast, and outsmart him. And in that moment, I decided, if he wanted a battle, he would get one. But this time I would fight on my terms. I didn't know how yet, but I promised myself, tonight I wouldn't just survive. I would turn the game around. The apartment was silent, except for the faint hum of the city outside. I could still hear him moving, precise, deliberate, like he knew exactly what I was thinking. But I had to calm my fear. Panic would get me killed. I took a deep breath and thought fast. Every moment I hesitated, he had the advantage. My company had trained me for crisis situations, for thinking 2 steps ahead. Now, I needed to use every lesson I'd learned, but against someone I had once trusted completely. First, I needed information. I grabbed my phone from the table, careful not to touch any of the devices he had manipulated. Using the flashlight function, I scanned the room. Nothing out of place, except for a faint glint near the bookshelf. I crept closer and found my company tablet, left charging and connected to the network. Perfect. He didn't realize I could access security feeds from it. I opened it quickly. Screens popped up, the cameras he hadn't noticed. The hallway outside my apartment, the building lobby, even my office floor. I could see him now, pacing, frustrated that I had stopped moving. And then I noticed something crucial, a vent above the kitchen. Small, narrow, but enough for me to use. I smiled, a cold, determined smile. Maybe it was risky, maybe it was desperate, but I had no choice. I set my plan. Use the cameras to track his movements, lure him into a trap of my own making. I could hear his footsteps approaching, fast, impatient. I grabbed a heavy vase from the table, keeping it hidden. My heart pounded, adrenaline mixing with rage. I wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. I was fighting for revenge. He rounded the corner and I froze, waiting. He didn't notice the tablet on the floor. I triggered an alarm on it. Nothing loud, just enough for him to glance toward the screen. In that moment, I lunged, swinging the vase and aiming to force him back. He stumbled, cursed, and my pulse leapt. He wasn't expecting resistance. "Not like this. You think this ends tonight?" He spat, regaining balance. "No," I said, my voice steady now, burning with defiance. "It ends when I say it ends." And as he lunged again, I realized something terrifying and empowering. This battle would not just be about survival. It was about proving that leaving him, leaving all the betrayal behind, had made me stronger than he ever expected. He thought he controlled everything. but he had no idea I had already started rewriting the rules of this game. I could hear his breathing, sharp, impatient, full of rage. But now for the first time I wasn't paralyzed by fear. I was calculating, thinking, planning. Every movement he made was predictable because he underestimated me. He still saw me as the same woman who had once left him, the same woman he thought he could break. He was wrong. I moved silently toward the kitchen, my hands steady now, clutching the vase like a lifeline. I triggered the next part of my plan, the kitchen lights. Not on, just a flicker, enough to cast shadows that would confuse him. He froze. His eyes darted around the room. "What are you doing?" he demanded, voice harsh, cracking with fury. I didn't answer. Instead, I ducked behind the counter and waited, watching his every move through the flickering shadows. His obsession had made him predictable. He circled me again, and I noticed the open window near the balcony. Perfect. I pressed a button on the tablet, activating a recording I had prepared earlier. It played my voice faintly, taunting, "You can't win. You never could." His head snapped toward the sound, distracted, exactly what I needed. I lunged, hitting him with the vase. He staggered, surprised by my sudden aggression. He roared in frustration, but the distraction worked. I sprinted toward the balcony, throwing open the sliding door. The night air hit me like a shockwave. He ran after me, but I was faster. I climbed out onto the narrow fire escape, feeling the cold metal under my hands. The city stretched below me, dark and quiet. But I didn't care. Every nerve in my body screamed survival. And then I realized he had miscalculated. In his obsession with revenge, he had left himself exposed. I had the upper hand now, and I knew it. I looked back at him once, his face twisted with anger and disbelief. "This isn't over," he shouted. But I didn't flinch. I had survived the first stage of his game, and for the first time that night I knew I could fight back, and maybe even win. But he wouldn't give up. Not yet. And I knew deep down, the real danger, the part I hadn't even seen coming, was still waiting. The fire escape creaked under my weight, but I didn't stop. My lungs burned. My hands were raw from gripping the metal railing, but I kept moving. Every step was calculated, every breath measured. I had escaped his immediate reach, but I knew better than to think this was over. I glanced down at the city streets below. My BMW gone. My company, my office, all vulnerable. He had shown me he could reach anywhere, and that knowledge gnawed at me. But I refused to let him win. Not tonight. I paused on the landing, trying to catch my breath when my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Hesitant, I glanced at it. A video message. My stomach dropped. The video showed my apartment. The lights flickered. And there he was, standing inside, holding something in his hands. My company tablet, my laptop, and behind him, an envelope identical to the first one. He wasn't just stalking me anymore. He was daring me, testing me, mocking me. Then I realized the twist. The envelope was addressed not to me, but to my assistant, someone I trusted completely. My heart lurched. He had been planning this for weeks, not just revenge, but a way to manipulate everyone around me. He wanted to isolate me, make me doubt everyone, turn my world into chaos. I pressed the fire escape button, the tiny emergency system I had installed, and activated a citywide alert for anyone near the building. Just a precaution. He was smart, but he didn't know I had contingency plans. I felt a surge of adrenaline. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was a battle of wits, and I had started thinking 2 steps ahead. But then the worst thought hit me. He knew I had access to the tablet and security system. He had anticipated my escape, and just as I prepared to climb down to the street, I heard it, a sharp click, like a door locking. My apartment door. He had trapped someone else inside, and I realized I might not be able to save her. He wanted revenge, but now he had escalated the game, and this time, it wasn't just my life on the line. I froze, my hands gripping the railing tighter than ever. My mind raced, heart hammering. He hadn't just targeted me. Now someone I trusted, someone who had always had my back, was in his control. My assistant. My life felt like it was spiraling out of control, and every step I'd taken to escape suddenly felt too slow. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Panic would get me killed. I had survived so far because I had stayed smart, observant, and unafraid to fight, and I couldn't lose focus now. I scanned the street below, trying to figure out my next move. The city seemed quiet, oblivious to the chaos unfolding above, but he wasn't going to wait. He never did. I pressed my tablet again, quickly switching between camera feeds. I spotted him, standing in my apartment like a king surveying his kingdom. Calm, precise, confident. He had planned every detail, every contingency, every trap, and he wasn't done. A chill ran through me as I realized the full picture. This wasn't just revenge for leaving him. He had been watching my life for months, studying my routines, my company, my habits. He wanted to destroy not just me, but everything I had built. And tonight, he was executing the first phase. I couldn't just survive anymore. I had to strike back. I looked around for anything that could help. The fire escape, my tablet, even the street below. I started formulating a plan, a way to save my assistant, trap him, and finally end this nightmare. But he was clever, too clever. I knew that any misstep could cost us both. Then I heard a faint sound from the apartment, a stifled scream. My stomach dropped. My assistant. He was cruel, deliberate, making me watch the stakes climb higher. I pressed my back against the railing and whispered to myself, "Think. Calm. You can do this." And that's when I noticed it. A small, overlooked ladder leading to the adjacent building, a risky move, but my only option. I took a deep breath, gripping the railing, my eyes never leaving the apartment window. I had to act fast. He wouldn't wait. Tonight, survival wasn't enough. If I didn't move, we would both be trapped, and I couldn't let him win. I took a deep breath, my hands gripping the railing of the fire escape. The ladder to the adjacent building wasn't exactly safe, but it was our only chance. One wrong move and we'd both fall. But staying put meant certain disaster. For me, and for my assistant trapped inside. I glanced at the apartment window. He was pacing, restless, confident. He thought he had us cornered. That arrogance would be his mistake. I swung myself onto the ladder, metal creaking under my weight. My heart was pounding, my palms slick with sweat, but I forced myself to stay calm. One careful step at a time, I could see my assistant now, crouched near the balcony door, terrified, frozen. "Listen to me," I whispered sharply, trying not to panic. "Follow me. Don't look down. Trust me." She nodded, trembling, and I guided her toward the ladder. Each step was tense, slow, every sound amplified in the night. And then a shout. He had noticed us. "You think you can run?" His voice was sharp, furious, echoing through the apartment. "You belong to me." Adrenaline surged. I held my assistant close, moving faster, knowing he could strike at any moment. My mind raced for solutions. And then I remembered the fire escape gates I had installed as a safety precaution. I triggered the lock mechanism remotely. He froze, realizing we were escaping. His fury was almost palpable through the camera feeds. He started moving toward the balcony, but I had one more trick. I triggered an alert on my tablet, a silent alarm connected to the building security system. Lights flickered, sirens whispered in the background, and for a split second, chaos distracted him. We made it to the adjacent building. Safe for now. I collapsed against the wall, my assistant breathing heavily beside me. Relief mixed with rage. "He won't give up," I whispered. "We need a plan. He wants to destroy everything, me, you, my life. But I've survived this far. We can finish this." And as we caught our breath, I realized the terrifying truth. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was a battle for justice, for everything I had built, and for the life I refused to let him ruin. He thought he controlled the game. But now I was the one making the moves, and he wouldn't see what was coming next. We were safe, for now. My assistant and I huddled in a small, empty office of the adjacent building, hearts pounding, minds racing. I knew he wouldn't stop. He was obsessed, clever, and dangerous, but I had something he hadn't counted on. My planning, my instincts, and the element of surprise. I pulled out my tablet, scanning every security camera feed I had access to. He was still inside my apartment, pacing, frustrated, trying to figure out where we'd gone. Perfect. That meant he was focused, predictable. I whispered to my assistant, "We're going to lure him out. He wants control. Let's give him something he can't resist, and catch him at the same time." I set up a fake alert on the tablet, one that would make him think I was still in the apartment, trapped and panicked. I left a trail, a camera feed that showed an empty room, but the alarm triggered sounds and flickering lights. He wouldn't resist checking, and just like I predicted, he took the bait. I watched through the camera feed as he entered the apartment, confident he had us cornered. His arrogance was his downfall. I activated the building's security override, locking all exits and alerting the police and building security remotely. He moved through the apartment, unaware the doors were now electronically sealed. I could hear his voice through the speakers I had set up. "Where are you?" "Don't think you can hide from me." I stayed calm, waiting for the perfect moment. And then it came. He reached for the envelope containing the latest proof of control, thinking he was about to intimidate me further. I triggered the cameras to broadcast live to the police and the building monitors. Suddenly, his every move was visible to everyone. Panic crossed his face. He realized he had walked into a trap. "Stop. Stop this!" he shouted, realizing too late that he had been outsmarted. I felt a rush of triumph, mixed with a bitter taste of anger and relief. He had tried to destroy me, but now the tables had turned. He wasn't the one in control anymore. I had survived, and justice was finally catching up to him. He would never hurt me again, but the scars he left behind would take longer to heal than I expected. The sirens outside filled the night, but inside, a strange quiet had settled. He was gone, restrained by the authorities, shouting and struggling as they dragged him out. I watched from the adjacent building, my hands shaking, my chest tight with relief and exhaustion. I sank to the floor with my assistant, tears streaming down my face. Not just from fear, but from the weight of everything that had happened. He had tried to destroy me, to take everything I'd built, to break me emotionally and mentally. But I had survived. I had fought back, and in the end, I had won. I thought about the apartment, my office, my life. He had tried to turn my world into chaos, but what he hadn't realized was that I had already built strength inside me stronger than any threat he could pose. I had survived betrayal before, and I had survived his obsession now. The police asked questions, but I hardly heard them. My mind was still processing. Every sound, every shadow, every memory from the night haunted me. But with each passing minute, I felt the weight lift. I was free. I looked at my assistant and smiled weakly. "We're safe. For now," I said. She nodded, still trembling, and I hugged her tight. That moment, this connection, this shared relief, felt like the first real victory of the night. And I knew that life wouldn't just go back to normal immediately. The scars, the fear, the betrayal, they would remain. But so would my strength, my independence, my resolve. I had faced the darkness, stared down someone who once knew my heart better than anyone, and survived. For the first time in hours, I let myself breathe. For the first time in years, I felt the full power of my own resilience. He was gone. But I had learned something even more important. No one, no obsession, no betrayal, could ever control my life again. Weeks had passed since that night. The city outside my office windows moved on, oblivious to the storm that had almost destroyed my life. But I hadn't just survived. I had rebuilt myself stronger, sharper, and more unshakable than ever. The case against him had gone public. Headlines called it a CEO targeted by an obsessive ex. But to me, it was more than that. It was proof that even the darkest, most personal threats could be overcome with courage, wit, and unbroken resolve. I sat in my office, the morning sun spilling over the skyline. My assistant placed a cup of coffee beside me, her eyes still wide with the memory of what we'd endured. I smiled, not because the fear was gone, it never would be entirely, but because I knew I had reclaimed my life. I thought about the man who had once been my husband, the man who had tried to ruin everything I'd built. He was locked away, his obsession dismantled by the very strength he had underestimated. Justice had come, but the real victory wasn't in his punishment. It was in me, in my ability to survive, to fight, to protect what was mine, and to refuse to be a victim ever again. I walked past my office window and looked at my BMW parked outside, untouched now, gleaming in the morning light. It wasn't just a car. It was a symbol of my independence, of my fight, of the life I had created for myself. And as I stepped into the bustling city, blending with strangers who had no idea what had happened, I realized something powerful. Fear could knock me down. Betrayal could wound me, but nothing could take my strength. Not obsession, not revenge, not even the ghosts of my past. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight lift fully for the first time. Life was mine, all of it, and I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was free. I had faced the darkness, stared it in the eye, and come out stronger. And from now on, no one would ever hold my life in their hands but me.